Good morning. My name is Susanne Prokscha. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm privileged to be your worship associate this morning. Today, we will be talking about loving your neighbors and what that kind of love looks like. Nearly every faith tradition calls on us to love others and treat them as we would want to be treated. In English, this is often called the Golden Rule. In Judaism, we read in Leviticus, love your neighbor as yourself. And Christians often refer to the text in Mark 12, where Jesus responds to a question about which is the most important commandment by saying, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind, and with all your strength." The second is this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. The Hindu Mahabharata says, "This is the sum of duty. Do not unto others that which you yourself would find hurtful." And Buddhists also have a text. They say, "Treat not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful." Now, our own UU values tell us to honor the inherent worth and dignity of every person. That should naturally lead to treating others kindly, but sometimes we might need a little direction. But as we worship together today, consider this one. This is my favorite, the poetic language of the Quran. "And do good unto your parents and near of kin, and on to orphans and the needy, and the neighbor from among your own people, and the neighbor who is the stranger, and the friend by your side, and the wayfarer." Come, let us worship together. We are gathered to worship today on the original homeland of the Ramaytush people. And while most of the original European settlers did not see or treat the Ohlone as true neighbors, we can tend carefully to the land and recognize those indigenous neighbors. This reading is from The Darkness of the Womb by Valerie Kaur. "In our tears and agony, we hold our children close and confront the truth. The future is dark. But my faith dares me to ask, what if this darkness is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb? What if our America is not dead, but a country still waiting to be born? What if the story of America is one long labor? What if all the mothers who came before us, who survived genocide and occupation, slavery and Jim Crow, racism and xenophobia, Islamophobia, political oppression and sexual assault, what if they are standing behind us now, whispering in our ear, 'You are brave'? What if this is our great contraction before we birth a new future? Remember the wisdom of the midwife? Breathe, she says, then push. Now it is the time to breathe, but soon it will be the time to push. Soon it will be time to fight for those we love. Muslim father, Sikh son, trans daughter, indigenous brother, immigrant sister, white worker, the poor, the forgotten, and the ones who cast their vote out of resentment and fear. Let us make an oath to fight for the soul of America, the land that never has yet been and yet must be, with revolutionary love and relentless optimism. And so I pray, in the name of the divine within us and around us, we find everlasting optimism. Within your will, may they be grace for all humanity.
William Safford wrote, "There's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. For Unitarian Universalists, that thread is love." In 2016, I was just starting my ministry, just having finished my internship. As you'll recall, 2016 was also an election year. A colleague and I were driving to a district minister's retreat in the first week of October. Front yards in the Twin Cities had blue signs everywhere for Hillary, often right next to Black Lives Matter signs. And we gave a cheer. We were like, woohoo, every time we saw one. We were excited at the prospect of the nation's first woman president. But our retreat was a few hours away in northern Iowa. And as we left the liberal pocket of the Twin Cities, the signs turned, at that time, a different shade of blue, with Trump's name in bold on the top and underneath a small phrase, "Make America Great Again." For the first few signs, we booed and snarled, and we even probably gave a finger once, maybe twice. A less occasional Hillary sign would come again, and we would cheer, "Woo, go Hillary!" But then the Trump signs became too frequent for us to sustain our disdain and to keep heckling them. And so we changed the subject and we talked about other things. But the one thing that struck me about the experience was that I became aware that there were likely just as many folks on the other side of the political spectrum from me who were flipping the bird at Hillary signs. We did, after all, no matter who you loved or did not, we did in 2016 have two of the most hated individuals, depending on what side you were on, running against each other. And so there was just a lot of that in the air, no matter what side you were on. And that hit me. And a month after our retreat, Trump won the Electoral College vote and became the president-elect, and I, and I'm sure many of you, were terrified. And we wanted to do something. I wanted to say something. I wanted to yell, and I wanted to scream at the top of my lungs. I wanted to remind everybody that our shared purpose was to love our neighbor, because I felt like that was really under threat. So I made my own sign. I made my own lawn sign. And since I knew that many of the folks whose political views were different than mine, but I also knew that those folks identified as Christian, I decided to use their language. I used words from their Lord and Savior on the signs, hoping the signs would not only resonate with people who shared my values, but with everybody. Jesus said that the second greatest commandment was to love thy neighbor as thyself. So love thy neighbor, I wrote. Isn't that something good that we can all remember? And then I added a reminder down below it as to who our neighbor was. And those were particular to folks who were being threatened by the incoming administration. And I sold these signs off my porch at first. And the proceeds of the signs went to help sponsor a Somali family that our church was hosting come the following January. Side note, they got banned from coming, but then they did end up coming. It was a whole scary thing. So I sold the signs, and I posted the signs on Facebook and told my colleagues, like, whatever, go to your own printer and get the signs and let's share a message. And at that point, I had turned the whole operation over to the printing company because it was just too much for me to sell these signs off my front porch because people were really wanting this message. They were wanting something positive to put out there. It was always about the message. Late last winter, I was here to interview for this job, and on the last day of the visit, I was at San Carlos with my family. We were having brunch, and after brunch, we decided to walk down to a store that my niece said had really good books. She had her 3-year-old son with her, so we went to the Reach and Teach. I'm sure some of you know the Reach and Teach, and guess what was in their front window? A sign. Literally a sign, figuratively a sign that I'm supposed to be here. I was like, well, hey, that's my sign. I've been looking at this sign all week, trying to figure out what it means right now to love your neighbor, because I know that the words on the sign aren't enough. They weren't enough in 2016, and they're certainly not enough now. And I know that my sentiment and my feelings, my sentiment and just my feelings to honor the inherent worth and dignity of every person, it's not enough that we just have that as our feeling. That is not enough. I know how complicated loving your neighbor is when your neighbor also includes those that you consider to be your opponents. Now, 10 days ago, right-wing activist Charlie Kirk was assassinated because of his beliefs. I know the pain of losing a public figure that you hold deep in that manner, because it was only 2 months ago that Democratic Minnesota Representative Melissa Hortman was assassinated. And it was a very dark time for liberal folks in Minnesota when that happened. We were both deeply saddened by her death and horrified by the political violence behind her murder. No one should be killed for their beliefs. And though my values differed drastically from Charlie Kirk, I will say that I have a bit of respect for him, that he was open to debating. Because I think our country needs more of that. We need to talk to each other. But that is not what's happened in the days since his death. Instead, the division between right and left has only widened and deepened. The current administration's reaction has been to dig its heels deeper into what can only be described as fascist practices. Now, I want to say that word out loud again, fascist. I've been reluctant to use that word up to this point. I didn't use it at all during Trump's first administration, and I hadn't really used it yet in the second. Perhaps my love thy neighbor attitude, alongside my Midwestern passive aggressiveness. I'll own it. We have something called Minnesota nice. It's not nice. That alongside my deep-held belief of the inherent worth and dignity of every person makes me cringe to think to even say that. But to love your neighbor is to call your neighbors to be their best selves, and to call your neighbors not to perpetuate harm against others when that is exactly what they're doing. And so we need an intervention. And we need to call out a sickness when we see a sickness. And we must call out systems of hatred and oppression. And we must engage in actions to stop them. On that word, fascist. The administration is aiming to take over the media, and it's succeeding. It's aiming to remove educational institutions and systems that do not comply with their revisionist history and loyalty to them. Do you know how subversive it is every time we do a land acknowledgement? Right now in this political climate, it is. They have an all-out effort to halt free thought and critical thinking. They've criminalized diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're firing independent appointees who don't agree with them. They're tearing apart families and terrorizing immigrants. They're getting corporations under their thumb, further spreading the extent of their reach into every aspect of our lives. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck. This is where we are as a nation. And so I ask you, how do we love our neighbors in the face of that? It seems overwhelming. So I return to somebody else's response to the 2016 election. In December of that year, after the election, Valerie Kaur delivered these words at an interfaith gathering. And now I'm going to ask you to do a little embodying, if you can. Because she had this interfaith audience, but I'm going to tell you there were a lot of Baptists there. The AME church was there. Do y'all know how those folks are during when the preacher is preaching? Amen. That's right. I'm going to need you right now. I'm going to need you to get engaged. Can you do that? Yeah. With enthusiasm? Yeah. All right. This is what we need to do. Here are her words again to remind you. And this is the fire that she delivered them with. What if we are not in the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb? What if America is not dead, but a country that is waiting to be born? What if the story of America is one long labor? What does the midwife tell us to do? Breathe. And then? Push. Because if we don't breathe, we die. And if we don't push, we die. Beloveds, we are called upon by ancient wisdom to love our neighbors, to ask them questions, to listen to their stories, to hold their grief with them, and to fight for them in the face of discrimination, hate, and oppression. We are called upon to love our neighbor when we see that our neighbor is perpetuating harm on others, to listen to them and to try to understand the pain and brokenness that they are operating from, both to better understand them, but also to remind them that they too are beloved and that they too are called upon to share in this message, in this purpose of loving their neighbor. Yes. We are called upon by the mission of this congregation to work together to transform ourselves and the world. Your words, right? We are called upon to deliver what Valerie Kaur calls revolutionary love. That is our great labor. We will deliver this love by breathing and pushing together. This is the crux of our shared ministry. This is what we do here. Together, we breathe and we push. We breathe because we need space to rest. We need space for renewal and space to heal. We need space for our tired and grieving, confused and shocked hearts. We breathe when we come together just like this every Sunday to make space for your joy and sorrow, to make space for you to let your guard down, to make space for you to connect with your friends. We breathe when we sing together. We breathe when we pray together. Our collective breathing also looks like things like book club and Saturday soup group and barbecues and family fun nights. That is when we are breathing together. It looks like pastoral care in a network of friends who will not let you fall through the cracks. When we do any of these things, we are filling our lungs with love and care that this community provides to sustain us, to give us rest, to invite us into that healing and renewal. And we breathe on our own, too, when we take time to care for ourselves. When we say no to that one more thing. And please Please make that a part of your spiritual practice, to tend to the light inside of you. Tend to the light inside of you so that it does not burn out. Strengthened by that love and support from one another, by the love we give ourselves, then we're able to push, right? To engage those ministries that are needed to transform the world, delivering sweet and fierce revolutionary love. We push when we organize to feed our neighbors. As Stephanie shared with us that we do with our pantry all the time. By the way, next Sunday is the last Sunday of the month, and I believe you are all encouraged to bring food, dry goods, hearty produce, toilet paper, diapers, whatever. Bring it here. We need to keep it filled because I'll tell you one thing, having been here a while now, once it's filled, it empties pretty quickly. You can practice that labor. You can practice that push by simply grabbing something every time you're at the grocery store or at Target getting your things. Just grab one thing. If you're getting something for the house, somebody else is going to need that same thing. Just grab an extra. In that way, you practice pushing. And you keep that bit of transformation in your heart as you're doing that. We push when we speak truth to power, proclaiming that Black lives matter, that immigrants are not criminals. We push when we center climate justice in our ministries, when we fight for gun control, when we stand up for reproductive choices, when we commit ourselves to calling our elected leaders often to demand the change that we need to see in this world for this labor to come to fruition. We push when we show up on the streets and raise our voices with our neighbors who are seeking the same path of revolutionary love. And I want to tell you about our neighbors. I actually just started with the Pacific Solidarity Cohort, which is an interfaith group here on the peninsula, or not Pacific, Peninsula Solidarity Cohort. And they are actually using Valerie Kaur's See No Stranger book. That's our study for the next 9 months. We'll be studying that together and how to bring revolutionary love into our ministries. We push when we show up together on the streets. I also want to remind you that October 18th is the next big No Kings March, right? October 18th. Indivisible is organizing that here. And I know we have some people involved with Indivisible here. So, yeah, just stand up for a second. Everybody see them? So, pushing is showing up. Pushing is showing up for this, but pushing is also maybe talking to them and asking, do they need any extra help? You know, do we need people to bring water or help with safety? You know, check in with people and see what they need. We push when we go to the polls and vote yes on Prop 50. Yeah. You see my reluctance. I am endorsing from the pulpit, which I don't think I've ever done before, a yes vote on this policy. And let me tell you, I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy that my first vote as a Californian is to temporarily legalize gerrymandering. Not happy about it. And you might be struggling too because it doesn't feel good, but it's necessary, right? And those of you who have been in physical labor, you know it's not easy. It's difficult. It's very uncomfortable. I urge you to vote yes. I urge you to go to the polls in November and vote yes. I remind myself to get my driver's license renewed so that I can go to and register to vote. Yes, I need to do that. Laboring, as Valerie Kaur will tell you, is not just rewarding and sweet. It is difficult and bloody and painful. But we are called upon to do hard things for the greater good. This week, incoming leadership for our social justice team is getting together, and you can look for meetings coming soon for ways to get involved. There's so many areas for social justice to get involved. But here is the thing. You don't have to do it all, right? Take a deep breath. Listen to what your heart tells you is the thing that you want to do, and let that be your guide. Breathe and push. That is our call. Breathe and push. But I have some special instructions for various sectors of our congregation on that. I want to speak to our elders. We thank you for your wisdom and your leadership. But elders, it is okay for you to step back. We are grateful for all that you have done to get us here. Started here when you were younger, and now it's here. Thank you. We can take the baton. We would love to just sit with you and hear your stories. We would love to have your care and support, but it is okay for you to step back. And I want to speak to the volunteers, the super volunteers. Please don't take on that one more thing that you think you can do maybe, but you can't do. We appreciate all that you do, but we love you. And we don't want you to burn out. We don't want your light to burn out. So if the sentence forming in your mind is, well, if nobody else will do it, don't do it. Right? You don't have the energy or the capacity to do it if that's what's forming in your mind. Please, just let it go. It's okay to set it down. Somebody will pick it up, or they won't, and will work on other things. It's okay. Is that clear? Yes. Well, if nobody else will. Oh, please. No. Take care of yourselves. To the social justice warriors among us, thank you for your courage and steadfast commitment to our values. Please continue to let us know how we can get involved. And please make your own self-care part of your work. You are so important to us in the delivery of this revolutionary love, but please tap out if you need a break. We need you in this for the long labor. And we are here to help and support you however we can. Let us know. And to the rest of you, we come here each Sunday to catch our collective breath, right? You're breathing with us, and we're grateful for that. But we also need a little of your push too. Now, maybe you're working full-time or in school or have kids or conditions, seen or unseen, that might prevent you from being able to do much in this labor. But we are letting you know that we still need you, even for little tiny things. You don't have to join a committee or come to choir practice every week to help. You can talk to Jack about becoming an usher or a greeter. You're coming on that day anyway. You can hand out something and you can say hello to people and greet them. And let me tell you, it will fill your spirit as much as theirs. You can talk to James and ask him what needs to be done here around the campus. And it might just be as simple as one day helping to clean out a closet. Maybe that's something you can help to do. You can ask Garrett if he occasionally needs help with the kids. There are plenty of opportunities here that aren't a long-term commitment that you can step into. Because we are all needed for this delivery. Our delivery of revolutionary love begins right here. This is our labor room, right here. It's the work that's done in all of our ministries. It's challenging and transformative. It is the work of our faith. This love is not passive, but fierce, demanding, and ultimately life-affirming. Let us commit to practicing revolutionary love by fighting for what is right and nurturing ourselves. By doing so, we can help to create a world where love and justice prevail for all. Blessed be, and amen.